Be'ez Hashem Parshas Bolok and Eretz Yisrael Chukas Bolok and Chutz La'aretz. The last, I think, 2 shurim we spoke about complaining. The issues of a person that's upset, frustrated, and gets used to venting by complaining at the whole world and blaming. It's fascinating to see how much emphasis the Torah gives to this issue, specifically when the Yidden were in the Midbar. Almost every parasha, the Torah talks about this concept that the Yidden were complaining. And in Chukas, it's very, very clear, the story of the Nachash and Nachoshes, that the Torah says that Vatikcha Nefesh Ha'am Badorach, they got very frustrated because of what they went through, and they complained to the Rebbeinu Shlem, we don't have water, we don't have our needs, and we hate the mon. We don't want such type of food. And then they got a very harsh punishment. If we look in the parashas, we'll see a fascinating nakuda that almost every time the Torah mentions that they complain, there's a process that goes through. Is that number one, the Torah understands where it came from, why you were so frustrated. The Moshel in Parashas Chukas, that the pasuk says, because they were in the hot desert and they were schlepping with their kids and everything. Vatikcha nefesh ha'am badorach, Rashi says, means that they didn't have yeshivat das, and they didn't have that geschmack and ruhigkeit because they were not settled. So when you find someone that didn't sleep all night and gets frustrated, so there's a beginning, there's a trigger. The Torah mentions it officially. They had a trigger. There was a reason why it happened that they were talking so that who needs the mon? It was better off we would have stayed in Mitzrayim. It doesn't make any sense. This whole Yelich is usually the trigger. But afterwards, we find that every time the Torah makes a dogish, the Torah wants to specifically explain, but you should know that if you complain, it means you're talking against Hashem. I want you to be very clear about it. Sometimes we feel complaining as a midah. Why are you complaining all day? Or we feel it's time an emotional burst. The Torah every time says, I could understand where it came from, but part of the process of fixing the issue is that you have to acknowledge that complaining means that you're talking directly against the Rebbeinu Shlem. So here we see when they did tshuva, they said, we're doing tshuva. Chotonu. What's the nekuda of the tshuva? Ki dibarnu b'Hashem v'voch. We chap. And first of all, it's important to understand that it doesn't contradict to chap a person's pain, to know why they got so triggered, to understand where they're coming from, and then doing the truth and saying, but complaining and talking like that, let's face it and say it as is directly talking against the Rebbeinu Shlem. It's part of the refuah. The same way that it's important for a person to chap why they did what they did, it's important that it's even more important they should understand the extent of the avla and what's the shoyrish, why is it so problematic what you did. That's emes refuah. A child gets very, very frustrated and threw something, or took something away, or hit their brother. So, for some reason, people tend to think that it's one or the other. Or they say, you can't hit. You can't hit your brother. Or you say, Nebuch, he took it away from him. He was triggered. Now, by the older people, it's just more messy. But it's the same exact formula, it's the same exact mahal that's happening. If I understand the other party, and I go deep down, and I chap, then, so fine, so good. You know what I mean? No, but he has his triggers. You know his mother, okay, he has the triggers, so that's it. If I want to come across and say, do you know that's kfira? So then that's like the old chinuch. No, it's both. The Torah does always is both. The Torah says, let's understand the whole story. You felt that you don't have any water to drink, you're shocked that you're having mon and you're in the desert and it's so long, it must be so hard, right? It's really, really frustrating. But, so what did you do? So now, what was the next step? So the next step we went, and you said, Nafshenu kotza b'lechem hakloikel, the Eibush is giving you mon, and you're saying that who needs this? It's crazy food, I don't want this food. You spoke against the Rebbeinu Shem, so you are understanding that it's b'derech mikra, you're having a bunch of mistakes, so you have to acknowledge it. Now, look how many times, it's fascinating, in Parashas Hamon, famous Parashas Hamon, in Parashas B'Shalach. So we usually start by the good ending. That's where Parashas Hamon starts. There's a pasuk beforehand. A little reka. The Yidden went in the midbar, and they said, "Mi yiten museinu b'yad Hashem be'eretz Mitzrayim." We should have died in Mitzrayim. There was food in Mitzrayim. B'shivteinu al sir abosa. It's one pasuk beforehand. There was flesh. You didn't have meat. B'chleinu lechem lo soiva. Why do you bring us to the midbar? Lahomas es kol hazel b'rav. You wanted everyone should die in hunger? Oh, Yom Hashem Moshe. Hinni mam telechem. You know what? I'm going to give you one. Now, you could chap from the psukim that something was going on beforehand. Sometimes you listen to the conversation, you're missing a piece. Because in the Parashas Hamon that we say, in middle, the Uboiker Moshe Rabbeinu says to the Yidden, I want to tell you, you're going to see that Eibush is going to give you mon, b'shomois tlunei seichem al Hashem. Because Eibush listened to your complaint, because you were complaining on the Rebbeinu Shalom. Has nothing to do with us. V'nachnu mokis alinu aleinu. You're screaming, you're blaming us. Let's face it, you don't like Hashem's plan. You're talking against the Rebbeinu Shalom. Next posik. Then Moshe Rabbeinu says that the Eibush is going to give you be'erev bosalechel. By night you're going to have meat. V'lechem ba'boiker, in the morning, mon is going to come down from the Shemayim. B'shmoya Hashem b'stlunois seichem, because Hashem listened to your tlunois, to the complaining, asher atem alinim olov. Nachnu mo, lo yoleinu stlunois seichem, ki al Hashem. You weren't blaming us. You were officially upset at the Rebbeinu Shlem's plan. It's fascinating. Many times, the Rebbeinu Shalom gave them after the complaint, also by the Misoinanim. They complained, and the Eibush says, you didn't say it the right way. Here, one of the reasons is the Ramban ala Torah. You could check it up here. The Ramban ala Torah says that they were supposed to get them on. The one is supposed to come. That sometimes you have someone that complains. If you wouldn't have complained, you would have got them on today anyways. Zog the Ramban, but if it would have came without the complaining, then the tachlis would have been kvot shemayim. The whole concept would have been, wow, look, the Eibush is taking care of me. Instead, it came as an answer to the tlunos, as in, you know what? Okay, I'll give you. It just took down the madrege of the kvot shemayim, of the ahava, of the closeness that you could have felt. But again, this is the lashon from the pasuk. Also in Parashas Shlach, they had tainus that they're going to Yisrael, and the Eibush says, "Ad Moshe leida ara azois because hashahim amalinu molai, es tlunas bnei Yisrael hashahim amalinu molai shomati." Same thing is in Koirach, when they had tainus that Moshe Rabbeinu was being the demonic. So the pasuk says also, "Lachin ata v'chol anedoscha yodem al Hashem." Moshe Rabbeinu is saying, "You're having tainus in the Eibushter. Aaron mahu kisalinu olav. Why are you screaming at Aaron? You don't have a problem with him. You have a problem with Hashem." And that is something that could help a person chap the picture better. It's not a schmuck to talk this way, but it's the truth. And when a person listens to the truth, and a person acknowledges it, then a person could really change, become better. when a person gets triggered for any reason, it doesn't contradict that we should understand the trigger. We should know why the person totally lost it. And usually it's because they're reminded of something. It wakes up old pain. It brings something very, very alive. Like they say, the amygdala, the part of the brain that screams fight or flight, it gets all, the mind goes down and the emotions of a person go wild. We could chap what triggered it. But then comes the second half, and that is, so what did you do? So what are you used to do when that happens? What you did was you spoke against the Rebbeinu Shalom. And it's very unhelpful, the least of it, because the Eibusher can help you, and now what you do?
It comes to acknowledging that everything comes from the Rebbeinu Shalom.
When? In the middle of complaining?
Yeah.
Oh. So here, this is like adin, very subtle. That means when you're having tainus, so many times a person is blaming others. Then they're not acknowledging that it's from the Rebbeinu Shalom. Why are you calling me now? You couldn't tell me this last week. So there's a million of such nuance. It's every day that we get frustrated. So when it's with people, so it's missing the core fact. That means the person doesn't want to go to the Magda Eibusher to make it happen. The person constantly feels that it was mikra, that it was it happened because it happened, coincidence. It just happened. So they're blaming, so they're complaining. But if they chap, then no. Every time you complain, you poshet kipshutai, upset at the Eibusher. So once you chap as the Rebbeinu Shalom, so then there's the second half. But chotch chap as the Eibusher, but then you're forgetting that everything is letov. So it's going again the core yisoidus from Amunah B'Tachon, that everything is letov, everything is hashgacha pratos, and everything is for the good. Or /and, it means it could be not every time all of the above, but there's always one of these, and many times a few of them that a person feels it's not fear. That's not Yosha. You know how much I invested in this? Now you could fill in business, child, marriage. Do you know how many things I tried? Do you know how much I davened? That is a pain. It's a emes of pain. Now a person has to always have both things on the table. That means the pain and then the truth. Because if not, a person is never going to get to the bottom of it if you don't understand your side and then see why it's wrong. The shoulish of that is it's not fear. Okay. But to who are you telling that? To the Rebbeinu Shalom. So let's help you understand the mistake. By screaming at you is not the solution, but by letting you chap the truth, it is the solution. It is fear because, first of all, we don't have the whole picture. Second of all, we could even it out with the Averis a person did, and the Eibusher is just showering abundance again and again and again. A person is totally not checked in. So the natural humbleness that a person constantly walks around with a subconscious, I don't deserve and I can't make things happen. These are the two yesodis of another. I don't deserve anything and it's not on my shlita. I'm extremely happy with the toivas the Eibusher did, and I know I don't deserve. When something happens, part of being makabel b'ahava is tzadik Hashem b'chol derochav v'chosid b'chol ma'asav. The Eibusher is right. Different psukim. Kei lemuna ve'ein ovel. Tzadik v'yoshor hu. Person is shocked. Person is in pain, but a person's mind is trying not to go to the mahalach that it wasn't fear. It's a bigger picture. The Eibusher is doing it, and it's letoiv, and I'm very, very disappointed. I'm shocked. I have to be able to process it. True, very, very true. There's place for the pain. Adarabah. If you give place for that disappointment, then you could accept the truth. Disappointment doesn't have to do with the truth. Disappointed is, I'm very disappointed because I was expecting something else. How many frictions between neighbors, family members, shutvim, is because expectations. There was a misunderstanding. Or, I really expected something and that person didn't chap or couldn't, and there's a lot of frustration because of expectations. So we do that to the Rebbeinu Shalom a whole day. We have expectations, and then the Eibush doesn't come through to our expectations. A person's allowed to say, I expected differently. I didn't believe that this is how it's going to look. I'm shocked. I had a total different vision. That's called acknowledging your disappointment. That's not a problem. But then, so what did I do? It doesn't make any sense. So what do you do? So you ruin the relationship? Many people do that. We mentioned it in the past. Brand new fundraisers. They expected to get a check of $10,000. The person had the chutzpah to give them $500. So they feel they should tell that person, what were you thinking? You think I came up to you for $500? And you should bechlal know. I don't know what's the tzwecken to which tzedakahs you give, but you should set yourself straight. Many people ruin relationships because they didn't have expectation. But what are you doing? You're venting because you had a different expectation. So you're venting to the source that could help you. Never burn your bridges. Stam chochmas chaim. We're not talking about amunah mitochen. It doesn't make any sense. You'll come around, eat it, swallow it, come back a half a year from now, build a relationship. You'll be shocked. Why are you burning your relationships? So when a person has expectations to the Rebbeinu Shalom is the source of chaim. You had an expectation. Shalom Aleichem. That's what a person has to chap. And so what do you do? What did you do? You're speaking against the Rebbeinu Shalom. It doesn't make any sense. It's not fair. It's a coincidence. Look what happened. I got so messed up. Look, and when we talk to others and we blame others and we feel it's somebody else's fault, the person has to be made aware. You're talking again. That's what you're doing now. Stop it.
Another reaction is I'm not blaming myself.
Very important. Very, very, very important. Very important. Person blames themselves the wrong way. Most times, people blame themselves the wrong way. The main akuda is understanding, that was a mistake. That way of thinking is wrong. But when a person knocks themselves for mistakes that they made, they're able to create the circumstances. Abishter knew that these circumstances are going to lead to such a mahalach. Our whole life we're fixing mistakes. We're only here to get to the next world. We're not supposed to be sitting here 50 years after we fix the mistakes. So even knocking yourself is a certain mahalach of blaming the Rebbeinu Shalom. I always knew, this is who I am. And whenever I start doing something, I really mess it up. Thank you. You're upset at the Eibishter's plan.
You should control that you're not acknowledging the control.
Many times when people knock themselves, it's because they feel that they need to be in control, and they're so frustrated that they're not in control. A lot of situations. Why didn't you tell me? I could have figured it out. You should have. You could have. I know how to do it. You're messing me up. You're making me feel like I'm a shlemazel. What's that? The ganze Sache is control. So many family situations, even parents with children. You did come, you didn't come. You should have, you could. You're talking against the Rebbeinu Shalom. Face it. Don't wash that. I understand where you're coming. It could be that you're triggered. Could be it's gewaltige pain. But let's face this nakud the Rebbeinu Shalom saying, because if not, you're never going to fix it. You're going to tell yourself against the time that you were right to where we're going to get to. You're going to live in pain this world and the next world if you're not going to chap this zachar. A person does tshuva. They chap themselves afterwards. They say, wow, that was wrong. That was very, very wrong. I shouldn't have done that. Wow, it's amazing. A person is on the right mahalach. They feel, even if you felt it only afterwards, 5 minutes later, you feel so bad. I forgot. The Eibishter did it. I don't do it anybody else. That's gewaldig. It means you're climbing that ladder. You're starting to look at the world with the right pair of glasses. You're seeing it the way you're supposed to. Now, this whole concept is part of the yesod that a person, b'chlal, boifun kloli, the Eibishter constantly presents us with matzovim bedafka to reveal the places that were not yet mushlam, that we didn't yet bring in the light of Amun B'tochen there. This is the mahalach of life. The Rebbe learns with us, teaches us. We should figure out where we need to fix. Like a little flashlight that figures out, hey, it's not Masuda, that concept, and it's such matzava. So the Rebbe Shalom is always going to bring people around us that are going to trigger us. If you're going to be the one saying that person makes no sense what that person is doing, you're totally missing the point. Your mamash isn't the point. Because there's a famous word of the Baal Shem Tov, Roya Odom Soita Bikal Kulo Yazer Atzmai Min Hayayin, which means that a person was in the Beis Hamikdash and he saw this whole parsha of Soita. So he should understand that if a person lets themselves become addicted to wine and alcohol, it could lead to very bad things. So you should keep away from alcohol. So the Meforshim ask, if you watched the consequence, if you saw the result, so Mustama, you don't need the chizik now, because you saw. Imagine you see someone that's drunk laying on the floor. It's very, very, that itself, that image should be keeping you back not to wanna be alcoholic. So why the person that saw the bad result needs to be the one that takes another step further away from the yayin? It's like the Baal Shem Tov HaKadosh, that a person has to ask themselves, why punkt you? Why were you there then? Why did Hashem make that you should observe, that you should see that happening? It must be that there's something for you to learn. And that's why the Eibishter set it up. The point you should bring your korban, you should be there in the Beis Hamikdash, and that time, that era, you should watch it, think about it. It's hashgacha pratis that you saw that. Many times we walk in the street and we wonder, why did I have to see that? The Baal Shem Tov said, of course, you should ask yourself that question. Hashgacha pratis, something you should learn, something you should fix. So that's why you saw Soita Bikal Kula, it has something to do with you. You should figure it out. You take a step back, because you don't maybe chap that you need chizik, but Hashem is showing you that you need that chizik. This whole bazach is with frustrations that people cause us. It's emes that person doesn't know how to drive. But why were you on that street while that person didn't know how to drive? Pshat is the Eibishter doesn't have to do that person knows how to drive now. No, they don't. But why does Hashem bring you to that place? Think about it. So when we find ourselves that we were triggered, it's something to think about. It's something to explore. So while we're in pain, it's not the time. But then a person goes weiter in life, and the person, next day you calm down, and you say, the Rebbeinu Shalom presented me a matziv that took me out of my kelim. Why is it so hard for me? That question is a moedige eye-opener. Why is that so hard for me? Why is that a trigger for me? The answer could be life-changing if you're going to say the right answer. Because that takes away from me the feeling that I'm in control. That's the pshat. Say it again. With a yeshiva das, not in the middle of this. So I had a need to feel that control, and that person is taking away that feeling from me. Why do I have that need to be in control? Now we're talking about Torah dig, we're talking about really solid refuah for a person. It's the real refuah. All the therapy is supposed to bring you to the core, to the yesod. That control is the problem. It's a nest that I was triggered. Why? Because I would have never chapped. The problem wasn't that I was in chaos. That's the problem. That I lost it. That I acted up. That's not the problem. There was a way how Hashem made me chap. That I have something wrong in the way I'm thinking. That's the bigger problem. That I need to be in control even if no episodes happen. But I'm living a fake life. And this Obazach is about attention and feedback and all kinds of not true needs that a person slowly develops and creates and builds a whole binyan and is so upset at the people that are not complying for my needs. Why aren't you stelling sich zu? Why are you so upset? Why do you need that person to comply, be'emes, in a moment of truth? Because they're giving you that safe feeling that if they comply, then I'm good, then I'm strong, then I'm successful, and if not, then I'm nothing. Ooh, that machshava is more important than anything that happened. It's a matana. It's a real matana. Because if you're going to fix that, you're becoming such a ehrlich yid. Just the thought process, nothing to do with behavior. You're not going to need all those behaviors afterwards. But if you're going to fix that, it's possible being a yid, because you're going to trust the Rebbeinu Shalom, you're going to start developing that connection to the Rebbeinu Shalom, not because of fame and money and trying to be successful and someone's going to see, so that's going to help me for my parnasa. All that garbage. It's a mamish sheker. It's just a person could be living their life with a gewaldige sheker. So the Eibishter set you up with, it could be a neighbor, it could be a parent, and it could be a delicious child, which is perfect match for you. You can't imagine. It's like a glove to teach you what you need to learn. And it's a fascinating limud. It's a fascinating limud. When a person could have the peace of mind to ask themselves that question. Why was it so painful? The emes. Get to the bottom of it. And then we use it instead of using it so a person could soothe themselves, could tell themselves, I was right. Sometimes you have this metzias, and it's very important to chap. It's subtle. You could have Reuven went through something, and they feel they need to vent. So they call the famous person that they always call, usually 3 times a day. You have no idea what happened. My daughter-in-law, Bora chutzpah, mamish, zero, I did further, venting. That person thinks that the toiva is to say, you're right. And this is going on for years. It could be a child. The mother has that child, now the child already tried to say, you're not right. Ooh. Well, coming from there, they learn, no, not that. So they just say. But when it's a friend to a friend, in many matzavim that we could fix, of course, the mahalach of saying you're the one that's wrong. I'm sad to tell you, it's too harsh when the person is in the middle so it's not the right moment, and it's not the right way of saying, and especially if it's a parent, so it's not the right mahalach to say it. But do you want to help, or do you want to make the problem bigger? Really, we're supposed to help the person. We don't have to be the ones. Help the person ask themselves that question. Why was it so painful? You could say it very tmimizdik. You don't have to say it that day. Try to lead the person that person should ask themselves that question. Why was I so upset? Now, we can't fix the world. We need to fix ourselves. We're just trying to chop trains of thought, that's it. We're not here to fix others. Ourselves, internal. Why was it so painful? In a moment of truth, a person could fix something that are paid to come down to this world only to fix that. Mamash azoi. Because it's always going to be a train of thought which is against the Rebbeinu Shalom, a bad one. We say it, what do you mean I didn't feel comfortable? Put all those words aside, because you're not really going to help yourself. That's the psukim say. I needed the attention because I felt it's going to help me. Say it as is. Let me help you. I wanted to feel that when I make a simcha, people could see Esraiv Oshrei V'Raiv Bonov. I needed it. And when it came, what is that place called? From the Twin Towers, what do they call it now? The Zero. No, Ground Zero. There's a Mokum and there's a Zman. But in a Kudata Zman, when I needed you, he wasn't there. I was Oismensch. I always do him toivas. One time I needed a toiva. Ich hear. But why did you need that toiva so badly now? Why was it so? Because you were vulnerable, right? Why were you so vulnerable? Why were you so vulnerable then? That you were so vulnerable because you were missing a Emunah B'Tochen, right? Again, when a person could hear it, which part of Emunah B'Tochen, which part? Sometimes the control, sometimes it's that I'm worth something, my erech. I was embarrassed. I was so embarrassed. Why? Because I take my self-image by showing off. Showing off what? Something Stama Matana Deba should drop to the side of you. That you're so busy showing people that you're successful with something that has zero to do with you. Why would you want to live like that? It's just not true. You're killing your relationship with Rebbeinu Shalom with this mahalach of life. You mamash ruin that relationship. Sachen that the Eibishter gave you, you're using as a form to show that you're successful. It's not emes. It's not emes. So of course you're not thanking the Rebbeinu Shalom every day. Of course you're not excited. Of course you're so upset at the mahacham the Eibishter is doing to you and all the people around. It's such a fascinating zach. That's why many times when a person makes a simcha, it's an interesting moment in a person's life. Not everybody has this nisoyin. It's a lot of peer pressure, and not everybody is in a society of peer pressure. But if you're in that society that is so much peer pressure, you watch an interesting situation unfolding. That means a person has now the need to show off that he has money, show off his family, show off what he could, the presentation, a lot of situations. I need now people show off. Why? Why do you have that need now? Be honest. Be honest with yourself, and you have no idea how much it's going to save your life. Is mamash going to save? Now, and you have it again in the Weiber Shul, the dressing up, everything again. And we're only talking about being honest. We're not talking about a person becoming a different type of person from 1,000 years ago. No. Let's be honest. Why? Because like that, if something is not going to be exactly the way you were expecting it to be, one child is not going to comply, or the flowers are not that color, or the timings didn't work out, and the mechutonim saw it was like in public. Let's go through this beforehand. Let's figure this out beforehand. Why? Because it's a painful life, and not only about a chasana. You think I care about the chasana? Chasana was one night. The question is, why was it so important for me? It's chaval. Live your life emesdig, and then the Eibishter is going to be so close to you. You have no idea how beautiful it is. It's geschmack. You start, the biggest oynish for a person for complaining is that they can't feel, they kill the sensation. They can't feel the toys in the Rebbeinu Shalom. Because all the toys are theirs. The pain is what my expectations didn't happen. So they don't have the joy. They can't feel it. So the Eibishter goes and sets up such a mahalach. That's what the Eibishter does. It's painful because it's the night of the chasana. But there wasn't any other night available in the calendar because the Eibishter already tried. The Eibishter says the only night that's left is the chasana. That's it. Now, it was a mess, mainly inside. Nothing really happened. All these situations, nothing really happened. Imagine the air conditioner didn't work. Imagine the caterer did such a lousy job. It was embarrassing. Mamash embarrassing. Nothing really happened. Who died? Nobody starves. Nothing happened. But the pain, the shame, it can't be moichel. There was a vikuach, a shalom bayis, we should take that caterer. The husband said, L'shem mitzvah, it's my friend. Yeah, take him, he's cheaper. And you're helping a yid have parnasa. And she took the risk. She said, I know him. And she took the risk. And she had to be able to absorb that embarrassing moment. It was embarrassing. It was embarrassing. But it has a mujidige opportunity. The opportunity is amazing. A person is masking to sit down and say what happened. Not because it's negeya for the past, but it's very, very negeya for the future. I need to know. I need to figure out why it was such a mess. And then, it's not negeya for the next chasana, no. It's negeya for next Monday. It's the way I think. It's the security that I'm taking from the places that I'm not supposed to be taking the security from there. My kids are my security. That's not Yiddishkeit. You're not connected to the Rebbeinu Shalom. So it's painful to have that blood transfusion. The transfusion is painful, not the way of living the right way. The way of living is 1,000 times more geschmack. Olam hazadik, it's geschmack. It's the change. It's the getting used to the other way. That's painful. It's painful. But what's the mahalach? To stay the wrong way is even more painful. So when the Yidden were in the Midbar, there's an interesting mahalach. It's 40 years getting used to living in Eretz Yisrael. Living in the desert for 40 years with children, there's nothing there. No food, no water, no clothing, nothing to do. It got them again and again to complain. They would trigger again and again. Now they didn't have food. Now they're thirsty. Now they say it was better in Mitzrayim. Now there's not enough of the month. They want to have bosor. Now they're upset with Eretz Yisrael. Constantly. The Torah mentions every single time. The Torah says this is the Torah. Famous word, the Chidush Harim from Ger, first from the dynasty. He met a different Polish tzaddik, Rabbi Yaakov Arya from Radzamin. They met and he saw that he was like down a little bit. So he asked him what happened. He said, we got to these parashas, I don't know, every parasha we start, the Eden again messing up and complaining and getting punished for it. There's no parashas that's beautiful, that's amazing. Why? Again and again. It's all about the sins. So he told him, von Zera Averis a gewohna Teure. From all their Averis, there's a Torah. From our mitzvahs, I don't see yet there's a Torah from our mitzvahs. But what's the depth from this word? The Pshat is Azoi. This is a very important lesson. This is life. You know what's in the end? On Moshe Rabbeinu's last day of this journey in Mishnah Torah and Parashas Eikev, Moshe Rabbeinu says, okay, now let's sum it up. We had some kind of journey together. And he says, the whole thing, it was a Charatas Kol HaDerech. I want you to remember the whole journey that we went through in the Midbar. The Eibishter took you through a desert, Lamana Noischa, because the Eibishter wanted to get you to those triggers, to give you that nisayon, so you should know, Lodas es asher bilvovecha. It's fascinating words. I know it's hard. You think I didn't know what it means to go through a desert? But the reason was because we need to get it out. And that is Baumsteiging, the inside. There was a tzaddik of Nachman of Horodonka. He said, there's a posuk, V'ish lo yala imach. It says by the Matan Torah, nobody should go with you. He says, yala means when a person is steiging, he's being matzliach, he's elevating himself. If a person knows about it, then it's not really yala. The main area where a person is steiging is when nobody's around. V'ish lo yala imach. So there's a madregas that nobody should know and figure it out. But the inner work is the real bomb steiging that a person. So the Eibishter is bringing you situations that it just reveals what's going on inside. And then the pasuk says, I want you to know deep down, v'yadata imlu vavecha, ki kasha yiyase ishes b'noy Hashem elekecha meyasreka. Like a father is teaching the child, and the father says no, and the father says, okay, we don't do this, we have to have a different way how to behave in such matzava. That's what was the story. That's our journey that we went through in the midbar. Now our life is a midbar. It was meant to be that way in a certain sense. It was meant to be like that. That's why we struggle with parnosa. We struggle. That's why we struggle with the inner work. We struggle with relationships. If it's a spouse, if it's children, b'chlal with people, so many areas. Why? Because that's going to bring out your worries. Why is there the biggest percent of mental illness is anxiety? It passed over. Anxiety is number one. Then goes clinical depression. Then goes OCD. These Sachen. Why? Because these are the sharoshim. Again, not everybody has the same nisyonis, and it's genetic. But pshat hazoi, part of it is the environment, and part of it is learning how to handle the environment. So we need to work it out. So some people were given any sign, start from here to here, some people from here to here, everybody wherever they're up to. Chas v'shalom, not to point fingers, but it's just showing you a shtickle picture. Because when you go through a matziv, it triggers daiga. Some people don't get triggered. Some people do get. It has to do with their past, it has to do with genetic and economic. But the situations in life are environments that trigger anxiety, 100%. I mean to say that the matzovim in life, that's the main part. They're going to trigger anxiety. So then it reveals it. So if it's a very, very sensitive spot, it's going to come out. It's not going to be nice. But matzavim trigger anxiety, that's life. And the Vilva Zachet triggers other parts, control, and all these Zachem, because the Eibusha wants to get it out. Person is asking themselves that question. Why is it so important for me? Why did it trigger me? Why is it so painful? They're going to get to one of the Yisoidis of Gaiva versus Anova. They're going to get to the places of Koichavotzim Yodi. They're going to get to the places of being in control and not believing that the Rebbeinu Shalom did it, and not believing that it's the Toiva and that it's not fear. Wow. Those are the Yisoidis Hadas. These are the real Yisoidis Hadas. So the Psukim really teach us that we're going to have part one, and then we're going to have part two. Just going to finish off with this Fasemes, Parashas Chukas, and the end of the parasha, the posik, there's Shira. Menachliel Bomois. They sang to Rabbeinu Shalom that the Eibusha gave them the Be'er. So the posik, the Gemara Darshans, that it goes on the Torah. Mimat the Eibush gave for someone that's a midbar, someone that's another midbar, the Eibush gives a matana the Torah. If he accepts the Torah and he learns it, then it becomes his nachla. It's a Yerusha. And then the Gemara says, but if you become a Balgaiva, that's the hemshach of the Shira, Bomo is a guy, then you're going to fall down. But if you do tshuva, you go back up. So this Fasem is why you have to bring this part of the song. The song is, the Torah is amazing. And then write a footnote in the bottom that be aware, not to become Balgaiva, not part of it. So this Fasem is, because it's part of the Nign. Why? Because it's always going to happen, because that's the journey of life. Because it's not possible to learn Torah and not to have some kind of gaiva. Very good, very good. The Eibishter knows. Don't worry. But learn from it. Learn from it, acknowledge it, and then you're going to have the most fascinating godless afterwards, because you learn from it. That's it. That's the journey. That's the song. It's the Shira Azois. It's part of it. So a person should knock themselves that it happened, acknowledge, chap, and see it, and then it's amazing. Good.